This year's Ebola outbreak has been the worst in history, infecting more than 9,000 people and killing over 5,000, including 2 here in the United States. And it's still not over.
And it's an infection that's transmitted by droplet precautions. So any bodily fluids from a patient will contain the virus, and then the virus can be spread from coughing, sneezing, or handling a patient's bodily secretions without proper protective equipment as the healthcare worker.
Countries like Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea have concluded the highest cases of Ebola and are still battling the epidemic. Here at the college, nursing students are learning about the crisis and different ways to treat a patient with the disease. Catherine Rotary, a nursing professor, is teaching new nursing students on how to put on personal protective equipment for other infectious diseases not as harmful as Ebola, but enough to know how to protect themselves.
At this point, they've been given a brief lecture on Ebola, how it's contacted, what the signs and symptoms are, what the blood workup would be, how you would diagnose it, and how to, if put in that situation, what kind of personal protective equipment the CDC guidelines are instituting right now.
You can just have a seat and I'm just going to get my team, okay?
Kathleen Fries, Director of Nursing and Allied Health, spoke about the measures that the nursing department was doing in terms of teaching its students about Ebola. Are there any concerns from students regarding the Ebola outbreak?
They really haven't. They've embraced the teaching. We've used the again, the Center for Disease Control as our current evidence to support the change in practice. And one of the curricular changes that we did do in the skills lab was have students practice using that buddy system where one student, if she was acting as the nurse and the other student is acting as a nurse observer, she's watching or he's watching the other nurse perform. We call it donning and doffing, or donning and removing the equipment, to make sure that if there were any breaks in technique, the person who's observing would stop the other person from going in and delivering care because they weren't suited up to protect themselves.
Today we're going to show you through using a buddy system.
So after she's done scrubbing for about 20 seconds, she's going to properly rinse her hands, making sure that they are pointing downwards so that the water will go into the sink and not contaminate her clean surfaces.
Nursing students Tony Bachetta and Liliana Galvez demonstrated the type of equipment that is needed to treat other infectious diseases. Proper materials needed would be a gown, a mask, goggles, and gloves. Has the recent Ebola outbreak made any changes to your current curriculum here at school?
We were looking at communicating what we were doing in a curricular teaching setting with our service partners, the healthcare administrations, extended care facilities, and to get an understanding of would there be changes in the hospital settings, willingness to have students on board or not. And the hospitals have agreed that they're instituting infection control processes, they're reinforcing that with their nursing staff, and that it would be a safe environment for our students to continue to go into the clinical setting as promised.
The country had an outbreak of its own when 2 nurses treating Thomas Eric Duncan, the first person to come into the U.S. with Ebola, got infected. Liliana and Tony responded on what they thought about the issue.
Well, you know, it is a very scary prospect, but at the same time, I think it's very exciting because I think this is going to come and revolutionize the way we look at infectious organisms, and it's pretty cool to be part of that while we are nursing students.
It's a very scary thing. You know, you don't hear about this kind of thing every so often, then it comes out and a lot of people, you know, think the worst and assume the worst.
From the health building here at NCC, Michael Perea, NCC News.